Welcome back to the channel. Suffering is grace. I don't wish you the suffering, but I wish you the grace from the suffering. There's a great book that reminds me of suffering, is named A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, a famous psychiatrist. He talks about his experience at the concentration camp. And the concentration camp, that's the deepest psychological, physical, spiritual suffering that anyone could ever go through in their lifetimes. And he spent his time there for 3 years, even going through Auschwitz, the most deadliest concentration camp. And he witnessed his family getting executed. He saw many others get executed. He had to live with his mortality, that every day could possibly be his last day on earth. And constantly being in fear of their own life every day, around the Nazis. And that's extreme suffering. And even after that experience, he was able to give that suffering meaning, and he created his own therapy named logotherapy. I think that book could really cultivate how we see suffering, because here's a man, he had every excuse to just be a victim, feel sorry for himself, being self-pity, just basically say his life is over at that point because all his family members are gone. He just went through that traumatic experience for years. He wasted those 3 years, if you want to see it that way. And I think that book is really powerful if anyone reads it, A Man's Search for Meaning. So I want to give you a few stories of why your suffering has a chance to change the world, to change yourself, and ultimately transform from being lead to gold, to alchemy. There's a famous Russian novelist named Fyodor Dostoevsky. He expressed about his political philosophy, and he got in trouble with Russia, and he was sent to be executed. It was a mock execution of a shooting range, and they put the hood over his head, and he really believed that he was going to get shot and be killed. And they fooled him. It was a mock execution, and they sent him 4 years to Siberia for hard labor 4 years after. And that experience really helped them understand the human psychological sufferings and how human nature is and people, and that these experiences helped him create one of the best novels of all time, Crime and Punishment, The Idiot, Notes from the Underground. And what's really interesting is in the book The Idiot, he goes detail to detail of that execution, that mock execution. The main character, one of the characters in the book, in The Idiot, describes the mock execution and how he felt in that moment, feeling like he was going to die in that moment, be shot to death. And you could tell Dostoevsky, he describes how when he was sitting there waiting to be shot, really thinking he was going to die, the air felt different. The smell got more intense, and 1 minute felt like 10 years for him. Each second felt so long, and it was a very spiritual, enlightening moment for him. So through that experience in the hard labor camps, for 4 years he was in Siberia, this helped him create the greatest novels of all time, and him essentially being one of the greatest authors in recent history. Another person I'd like to discuss is Carl Jung. Carl Jung was another psychiatrist that he broke away from Sigmund Freud, and he wanted to really seek who he was in the psyche. And he went through his own crisis, he called it Facing the Unconscious. And from the year 1913 to 1917, he was facing dark images. He thought he was losing his mind. He was going crazy. And through these experiences, it helped him seek even deeper what was going on in his psyche. He started reading alchemy work, mythology, psychology, religions, art, and he knows the pattern. And that pattern, all these things, all these experiences helped him create the individuation process. Great quote by Carl Jung, him saying, before you can reach heaven, you must reach the roots of hell, right? And he's saying, before you could be enlightened and be your true self, you must go through hell first. You must suffer first. And that's a lot of truth to that. And here's a man, he goes at age 50 through a large spiritual crisis. He's in deep despair. Everything just feels empty, knowing that he will die. And he was having a tough time facing his mortality. But through that experience, his books got more spiritual. It had a deeper meaning. And it really helped him navigate who he was and aligned with his true self and what was truly important in his life. He started seeking help in the peasants, and his books started getting more spiritual. And one of the books that were really deeply impactful for me is named A Confession. And that's his memoir of his midlife crisis. And he goes into really great details what it feels like to go through a midlife crisis and go through a spiritual crisis, really, and being in that kind of deep despair for years. He was in deep despair like that for about 3 to 4 years, and it really helped him change his perspective on life, and his books got even deeper. So you ask, Ryan, why do you want to share these stories? Why these men? Why now? Well, all these 3 men, or 4 men, you like to say, because including Viktor Frankl, they all experience suffering. They all experience the same feelings, emotions, the guilt, the shame, the regrets, the fears, all facing their own mortality, all of them facing, deep introspection of themselves. And they all had a choice. They all had an attitude how to take these experiences. All 3 to 4 of them were willing to suffer because they realized suffering was grace. And suffering with grace is not meaning to be happy for your suffering. Yes, suffering, it sucks. It's definitely not what we seek in our lives, but we can't control those things. And they realize through suffering ultimately is alchemy. What I mean by alchemy is Carl Jung realized that he studied alchemists, and alchemy, yes, they're seen as these crazy guys, and they're trying to create lead to gold, but he saw it as a analogy as for your soul, right? Is alchemy transform you from lead to gold, right? And eventually we become, through that suffering, we become gold. We become ourselves. Life is like schooling. It's your curriculum, right? Sometimes we get stuck in our self-pity and it's why me? Why this happened? Why does someone have it better than I do, right? Instead of being stuck in your own suffering, get busy being human. Get busy actively being in your curriculum. This is your curriculum. This is your schooling. Face it, right? Stop comparing yourself with other situations because you don't know what they're going through. You never experienced with them hip by hip, their thoughts, their thinking, what they experience, their emotions. So you truly don't know and can't judge how other lives are. Because you've seen people with high status are miserable, and you've seen people with low status are the happiest people sometimes. So I realize if you see life as a curriculum, and each level, each level is going to bring adversity. It's going to bring a sense of you pushing yourself to know who you truly are in this lifetime. Then you know what comes down must come up, right? Then it starts becoming fun. It's like a game almost. And you realize each level will get harder, right? You will see repeated patterns, but different in different situations, and realize in order for you to change, these events, these experiences will keep occurring until you make changes and you force eventually to look inwards. I love a quote by Carl Jung. He says, "Those who look outside dream, those who look inside awake," right? And that's the only way you could be enlightened in this lifetime, is truly being deeply self-introspective and figuring out who you really are and meshing together, the unconscious and conscious mind, your shadow, your belief systems, and confronting these things, these uncomfortable emotions, and figure out who you really are. What I've realized is the greater the suffering, the greater the potential. And what I mean by potential is not meaning by external things like your job, your status, your money, or you get fame. No, I'm not talking about that kind of potential. I'm talking the potential within. The potential of being your true self and being aligned of, your true purpose in life and what really connects with you deeply, and to help others in their life. So that is it helps you, because then there's no external expectations like, oh, I have to be like this, or I have to make this much money. So no, you've done your work if you become your true self in this lifetime. And that's really empowering. Because a lot of people associate with potential with external success. Who are you, right? Everyone's trying to be somebody, right? Well, I think the goal in life is to be nobody, right? Because everyone's trying to be somebody. Everyone's trying to impress others. Everyone's in competition, especially with social media nowadays. The person who's truly aligned with themselves, they're okay being nobody, because they already feel their true selves, right? And you have to be careful of feeling complete in life, because if you feel complete, you will be stagnant. You will be okay with mediocrity. I'm not telling you to be complete this time, but evolve as a person, right? If you're a different person from 5 years ago, you've done your job. So the core message of this video is, suffering is a chance for you to grow. It's a chance for you to evolve. It's a chance for you to be more of an enlightened person, to see the world in a different perspective. It allows you to be more empathetic. It helps you be less judgmental towards others, because especially if you've been through the worst suffering, nothing really freaks you out. You kind of just, you see how things are, and you feel a sense of unconditional love with that person. You feel the oneness. And I think other people, they feel that energy. And if you get to a place that you don't have to say a word, and you walk around people and they just feel your energy and your presence, that's all you can ask for. That's what, I think we all should be pursuing. But I just want to express this in the video, just all the stories of those great men, going through their own sufferings, and they're able to enable themselves to be the true selves, and they're able to give back to the world and give their suffering meaning. And I think once you give suffering meaning, all suffering disappears then, right? Because then you all had a purpose, right? You're able to transform yourself, become a different person, and you're able to give back to the world. And through that, then your suffering all disappears, and now all it gave meaning, and you see all the dots that you're able to connect. Now everything made sense, and you realize everything was like a storyline, right? It's like a novelist wrote your life. So there's no accidents in this lifetime. Everything's all perfect, And once you realize that nothing's random, you see life as a video game. So, thank you for listening. Catch you next time.